Well, hey, we are so glad to have everybody here this morning. We are in week 2 of our series, As for Me and My House. And if you missed last week, I want to encourage you, go and check it out. It lays the foundation for this entire series. And we're basing this series and that title off of Joshua 24:14 and 15. But last week we talked about the place where every single one of us started. We may not be there now, but every single one of us started off single. And we talked about that last week, and maybe you find yourself there again at this point in life. Maybe you're there and you don't want to, and you're longing and waiting for a spouse still, whatever that looks like. But being single is a place that each and every one of us starts in life. Some of us find ourselves there again, and although it may not be the place we desire to be, it is a place where we can honor and discover who God is and grow in incredible ways. And so if you missed last week, I encourage you, check it out. It lays the foundation for this week, and we dive into that. But today we're going to move beyond single, and we're going to move a step farther as we begin to talk about marriage. It's next month already. Today's February 1st. So next month on March 20th, Kayla and I are going to be celebrating our 5th wedding anniversary already. And birthdays are great, right? Birthdays, they're fine. I love anniversaries, right? And this is why, right? At a certain point, right, you hit 10, and that's cool. Like, ooh, I'm double digits, right? 16, you get your driver's license. 18, I'm an adult. 21, you can't do anything because we're in church, right? And so it doesn't really change much for us, right? 21, right? 25, I can rent a car. 30, some people 30 is cool. Some people 30 is like this is that first milestone I did not want to hit, right? So at a certain point, something happens where birthdays, they're like, it's a birthday. You know, like maybe after 30 for like the next 9 years, like, cool, I'm 31, 32. You hit 40, right? You celebrate decades, but like in between, they just kind of disappear. They lose some significance, like, cool, I got like a gray hair now. Like now I got to shave my nose. Like, right? At a certain point, birthdays come whether you want them or not. They're going to be there. Like you don't get to stay 21 forever and in the prime of life. Eventually, 22 comes. Eventually, 62 comes. 83 comes. 94 comes, right? And they continue on for as long as God willing. We've got breath on our body. Birthday comes whether we want them or not. But that's not how anniversaries work. Anniversaries only come because somebody worked for it. Somebody fought for that anniversary to come. And so birthdays are cool, but I love anniversaries because it means you worked for it. You had the tough conversations, right? You adjusted, you adapted, you served each other. You didn't live for yourself. You may have fought with each other, but more importantly, you fought for each other. Anniversaries aren't guaranteed, and so I love every time I get to see somebody celebrate an anniversary. To me, those are the most incredible things. And I love my grandpa as one of my the greatest influence in my life. Matter of fact, my grandpa, when we got married, Kayla and I kind of talked. We got a certain way into the process, and I knew I was inviting my grandpa out, and I just hit a certain point where I'm like, you know what? I don't want my grandpa just there. I want my grandpa beside me. And so my grandpa was actually one of my groomsmen in our wedding. We literally had almost as many people standing up front as were sitting in the crowd because it was in the middle of COVID and we weren't going to wait for COVID. We were ready to get married. And so we had our wedding and my grandpa was there. But my grandpa, before my grandma passed in 2016, they were able to celebrate their 50th wedding anniversary, and it's just such an incredible legacy to be able to follow and have. And so I love my grandpa. He's been a great part of my life. I was 15 years old, and my grandpa decided that he was too old to be carrying shingles up a ladder onto a roof. And so he says, hey, that's your job now. And so he hired me to start carrying shingles up a ladder. And so I spent the next 10 years of my life before I moved out here. And regularly, I would get calls. As a matter of fact, the moment that I realized I was coming to New Mexico was because my grandpa got a call and said, hey, can you help me carry this linoleum into this house that I'm working on a project on? And I walked in there, and it was a Navajo man who had moved 10 minutes away from where I lived in Akron, Indiana. Who knows where Akron's at? That's right, just me, right? We got one, right? And so he brought me in there, and a Navajo man had literally been living 10 minutes away from me my entire life that I had no idea. And he had passed away, and he grew up just about an hour outside of Gallup on the Arizona state line in a town called Rabbit Brush, if anybody knows where Rabbit Brush is, right? And so it was because my grandpa called me, and he walked me through the house, not knowing 3 days prior I'd been invited to come to New Mexico, and said, hey, can you help me carry this linoleum in? And he's like, let me show you this house. And we walk into this house, and there's just Navajo decor and all the different things everywhere. And I'm like, well, this is such a weird coincidence that I've just been invited to work on the Navajo Nation, right? And so my grandpa has been such an integral part of my life, including our wedding. And so when Kayla and I got married, I should have dug out the card and brought it today. I didn't. But my grandma has always been a card sender, right? So she would get the church bulletin when I was growing up, and it'd have every birthday and every anniversary, and she'd get her little typewriter out, and she'd type whoever's name it was onto the envelope, and everybody would get their birthday, their anniversary letter. My grandpa still does that to this day. And so when we got married, my grandpa got out the typewriter, and he typed out Kayla and Mai's name, and he put this memory verse on it, right? Now, what he meant to put was Proverbs 18:22. He who finds a wife finds what is good and receives favor from the Lord. Somebody say amen, right? What incredible advice to start off a marriage. The key word, though, is that's what he meant to put. That is not what was on the envelope. Instead, the envelope had Proverbs 18:23. And so when Kayla and I Googled Proverbs 18:23 to find out what it said, this is what we discovered on our wedding day. The poor plead for mercy, but the rich answer harshly. I have never been so confused in my life. I was like, Grandpa, I love you, but I don't know what you're trying to say here. The poor plead for mercy, but the rich answer harshly. And thankfully, eventually, Kayla and I, instead of just Googling the verse, we just opened up our Bible app, and we were looking through, and then we saw 18:22 right above it, and he who finds a wife finds a good thing from the Lord. I'm like, that makes much more sense. And so then we began our marriage, though, on the poor plead for mercy, and the rich answer harshly. Right. Over the next couple of weeks, we're going to begin to dive in to marriage. And we're going to begin to dive into some of this looks. And today we're going to start with the husband. And before anybody starts to grab stones or gets offended halfway out and walks, let me read the scriptures and then let's read them in context, right? Because this is some stuff that we hear it, but sometimes we hear it misrepresented. And so we're going to make sure we study it in context today and begin to discover God's design for marriage as we focus this year. And this is something that we felt for a long time, that God was speaking over the church, that we need to be intentional to develop strong marriages and families. And so I love that there's been times where it's like, okay, we're going to do that this year or at this time. And it just doesn't work. And finally, God brought it around in February. It made it on the calendar. It was on the paper, okay, it's going to happen. And then realizing how God was lining it all up with the vision for 2026 as we talk about development. And so this year we're developing strong marriages and strong families. And we're going to go into Ephesians chapter 5 today. This is one of the most well-known passages on marriage. And it lays the foundation before we get to where some of us want to jump in. We're going to start in verse 21 because this lays the foundation not just for the husbands today, but for your marriage as a whole. Ephesians chapter 5, and we're going to start in verse 21, where it says, submit to one another out of reverence for Christ. Right? Everything else that we talk about today and in a couple weeks when we talk to the wives, it all comes back to this. This becomes our foundation. Nothing else matters unless the foundation is true. Right? We know that because we've been in a sanctuary where the foundation wasn't true. And when it gave out, everything fell apart. And sometimes that's what happens in marriages. The foundation isn't secure, and when it goes, it takes everything with it. And so this is our foundation, whether you are here today and married, whether you desire to be married in the future, whatever that looks like, this is our foundation for marriage. Submit to one another out of reverence for Christ. Now, submission in marriage, and this is what's important, submission in marriage is expected from both husbands and wives. But how that happens and what it looks like is going to be different. The submission of a husband to his wife is going to look different than the submission of a wife to her husband. But our foundation is that because we follow Christ, we are submitting to each other. Submission is not authoritarian. It is not a power structure focused. It is Christ-centered and Spirit-driven. All right, here's what submission means biblically. It means to yield one's own rights for the sake of another. To yield one's own rights for the sake of another. And so this is the foundational verse for everything that we're going to cover today, but it's also the foundation for our marriage, that we would submit, yield our right for the sake of our spouse. To one another, right? Mutual submission by both the husband and the wife out of reverence for Christ. Christ-focused, Christ-centered, Christ-honoring in our marriages. And so today we're going to start talking with the husbands, and again, not just the husbands, but with the men who are, whether you're here in person, whether you're watching online, beginning to address this is what God desires and expects for you, that when you enter a relationship, this is the standard that's on you. And the reality is we're going to start off, and it starts off and it sounds kind of harsh, and this is where people want to focus on one verse and get caught up and normally take it out of context, and we start off with some stuff addressing the wives. Right? Wives, in this passage, you get 3 verses. Husbands, all the rest applies to you. There's 4 times as much addressing the husband as there is the wives. There is a weight on the men in a marriage that we are meant to carry and created by God, and there is a responsibility that is put on us, that when you're put in a position, even if you think about at work, a promotion means more responsibility, not less. It comes with an expectation for you to serve those under you. And as husbands, it's the exact same thing. That there's a weight that has been put upon us, and a responsibility and an expectation that we will stand before God accountable for how we lead our wives and how we lead our families. And so today I think we're going to maybe be challenged a little bit culturally from the normal. We're going to be challenged biblically to follow the standards of God, but I hope also encouraged and enlightened. I think that today could also help bring some understanding about maybe why things feel like you're driving down the road and you've got a flat tire and you're still there, but you can feel the hitch every time you roll until you eventually come to the stop or the tire explodes. And there's times in marriages and in life where we're still going, but something just doesn't feel right. And I'm praying that today maybe it can help us to realize this is why things have been a little out of sync in our family. Honestly, man, maybe there's reasons why we feel unfulfilled. But today we're in this together, and I want to be very clear. I think there's some things that I do well as a husband, but I know there's things that I don't get right. And so we're in this together, men, as we dive in and commit to our families, and we make a declaration to say that as for me and my house, I am going to be a husband after God's own heart, and I am going to lead my family with the plans that God has. And we may not always get it right, but we're saying, God, I'm going to put you first in my life so that I can put you first in my marriage, so that I can put you first in my family. So reading again our foundation of marriage, let's look at this passage in Ephesians. Ephesians chapter 5, we're going to read 21 again, and we're going to go through verse 24. Submit to one another out of reverence for Christ. Now hold your tomatoes and rocks. Wives, Submit yourselves to your own husbands as you do to the Lord. For the husband is the head of the wife, as Christ is the head of the church, his body, of which he is the Savior. Now as the church submits to Christ, so also wives should submit to their husbands in everything. So again, Paul highlights here that wives are submit to their husbands, and guess the Bible says it, the Bible means it, but we need to understand what the Bible's saying here, because we know from verse 21 that it's not just wives submit to your husbands, it's submit to each other. And this becomes the foundation under which the wife then submits to her husband. Because submission does not mean that wives become a doormat or slaves, that you lose your voice. It doesn't mean enduring abuse, because by the time abuse enters the picture, the husband has already broke his covenant, and the wife is then free to leave. Biblical submission means this: the wife is choosing to trust her husband and follow his lead in their home and family. Husbands, you are designed to lead your family. You are designed to bear that weight of the decisions and directions. Now, this doesn't mean, again, that your wife has lost her voice. You're in this together, right? There's never a decision that I make that I say, all right, Kayla, this is what we're doing. Why? Because I am submitted to her as she is submitted to me, and so we come together. And there may be times where I say, hey, I feel strongly this is where we're supposed to go. But there's never an authoritarian state in this, because we were designed to lead our families, but our leading is based in Christ. We were designed to lead our families. And sometimes the reasons wives get frustrated with their husbands, the reasons that men feel deflated and discouraged, they feel like they don't have value, they feel unfulfilled, is the same. Men were created with purpose and designed to lead. And when they aren't doing that, then something has been going out of shape. There's the flat tire on the car where the design is there, but it's not functioning the way it was intended. And the reality is, in this culture, husbands leading is not always the norm. Right? We live in a matriarchal society. Mom runs the house, grandma runs the family. And we laugh and we know it's true, but it's not biblical. It is not the way that God has designed it. And again, we're not taking away the voice of women, but we're coming in line with God's desire that husbands were meant to bear the weight of leading your families and in partnership with your wives. But I think this is where it's important. We need to understand, yes, we're saying that God's designed the man to lead, but what does that actually mean? Because it doesn't mean that you reign from your recliner in the living room and that now your wife is expected to cook and clean and serve your every whim, right? That is not biblical leadership, right? There is a healthy biblical submission and leadership that we see and apply in our homes, and it's based in verse 23, right? Verse 21 is our foundation. Submit to one another, right? And so we have mutual submission, but then the biblical idea of headship, of leadership is in verse 23, husbands, you are the head of your home as Christ is the head of the church. Husbands, we are called to lead like Christ. And that is no easy task. That is a call that bears heavy weight and heavy responsibility as we look at the model that Christ set before us. Over and over throughout the Bible, the church is called the bride of Christ, which means that as we look at Jesus, and I know like as a kid, right, this always messed with me. I'm like, I'm a man, I can't be the bride. Right, I understood that, and like it messed with me a little bit. I'm like, but I'm the man, so I can't be the bride. Right? We're just going to go with it this morning because it's an illustration. And so Jesus is the groom, and as the church, we are the bride. And we think back to those dating times and the first time that we saw our wife, or the first time, we saw our girlfriend, and man, she was just the prettiest thing in the world, and we would do whatever it took to get her to look at us. whatever it took to get her to talk to us, whatever it took to impress her. And we would do whatever it was to serve her. And the reality is that's what Jesus did, that he came to earth to draw our attention to him. And he came to show us who he was, but he came to serve. See, it's the example of Christ that we're called to follow, not that we're called to rule and reign, but that we are called to love and serve like Christ. So this morning, 3 quick things. What does it look like to lead like Christ? And first is this: a godly husband leads with love. Ephesians chapter 5, verse 25. Husbands, love your wives, just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her. Right? Again, so Christ is our example. Let's remember Jesus said, the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve. So as we talk about mutual submission, we talk about leadership, this does not put the man on a pedestal to be served. This puts the man in a position to say, I am here to serve my family. I am here to lead, but I'm here to lead through serving and sacrifice. I'm here to set the example. I am here to serve you, not expecting you to serve me. In his commentary on this passage, the theologian and Bible scholar N.T. Wright, he notes this. He says, Paul didn't say, husbands, rule your wives. He said, husbands, love your wives. Love must lead our leadership. Husbands, we have been entrusted. Our wife is the most beautiful gift we will have on this earth. I love Anna with all my heart. I found myself earlier this week, I was holding her one day. She was being kind of punkish, if I'm honestly. She was crying and just doing different stuff, right? She's a baby. They do that. But I just looked at her. I just found myself looking at her with awe and just falling even deeper in love with her as I held her in my arms. One day, Anna's going to be gone. I'm not going to kick her out of the house at 18. She can stay as long as she wants. But the reality is, one day, 90% chance, she's going to go marry somebody. And she's probably going to move out of the house at some point. And she's going to be gone. Kayla will always be there by my side. Children are a gift, but our spouse is there forever. Eventually, the children leave the home. And so it's a priority to treasure the one, not that we have 18 years to invest in before they become an adult. Yes, there's a responsibility with that. We'll get to that in the last week. But we are to treasure our wives because we have been entrusted with a great responsibility to lead like Christ and to lead not with a fist, not as a ruler, not with expectations, unrealistic expectations, but to lead with love. We've been entrusted by God to lead our homes, not with dominion and control, but from a seat of love. See, Jesus, God himself, the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, right? Those are greater titles than anything I have. I don't know about you, right? King of Kings and Lord of Lords, the one who created the earth and everything in it, who lived in heaven, chose to step down into the earth. He showed us what it looks like to have complete authority as the creator of all things. Having conquered death and the grave, he rose with all authority being given back to him. But he didn't use it to lay claim to the world. He used it to love and to serve. Jesus, having the highest authority, he taught the truth. He taught the reality that there is judgment and there are things that are coming, but he didn't come making demands. He came in love and humility. And when a husband leads like Christ, it will be from love, humility, and serving our wife. Jesus confronted the things that need to be confronted, but he became our example, leading with love, service, and ultimately sacrifice. A godly husband leads with love. And second, a godly husband leads toward Christ. Ephesians chapter 5, 25 to 27. Husbands, love your wives just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her, to make her holy, cleansing her by the washing with water through the word, and to present her to himself as a radiant church without stain or wrinkle or any other blemish, but holy and blameless. Husbands, we are to lead like Christ, not as Christ. See, the one thing that Jesus did in those verses that you and I cannot do is we cannot make our family holy. We cannot wash away their sins. We are not the salvation of our family. It is not that the wife and the children have to come to the husband and father to get to Jesus. They have to go to Jesus. And it is our responsibility to lead them there by our words and by our actions, that we would lead them to the only one who can save them. And we are to lead them not just like Christ, but towards Christ. As Christ prepares us for himself, to be with him in eternity, correcting us through the Holy Spirit, shaping us, growing us, we are to lead our family. We are to take a stand and say that as for me and my household, we are going to serve the Lord. Well, what does that mean? Well, that means that I'm going to lead my wife in prayer, and I'm going to lead my wife in Bible reading and devotions, and that I'm going to lead us towards Christ, because I know this, that the closer I am to the Father, the closer I can be to my spouse. And as we seek him together, we will grow closer together, because we're seeking him first. And husbands, it's our responsibility to lead. So we lead in prayer, we lead in Bible reading, we lead in devotions, we bring our church, our kids and our family to church on a Sunday. But that also means we model what it means to follow Jesus the rest of the week. Because if I'm dragging my family in and we're singing Kumbaya and we worship Jesus on Sunday morning, but then I go and I'm getting angry with my kids and I'm cussing at them because they're getting on my nerves, and I'm doing something different at home than what I preach on Sunday, then that's the message the kids are going to receive. And so as we lead our families towards Christ, it means that I am going to center myself, because we all start single, so I'm going to center myself on Jesus. And then I'm going to make it a priority to lead my family towards Jesus. And I'm going to live that out at home, that I make sure my life models Jesus. And we become the example of what it is to follow Jesus. Christ came to make us holy and present us to himself as a bride ready for marriage. Understanding what's happening, right? Kayla and I right now, we're in the middle. We've got a wedding we're going to in May, and we're not performing the ceremony. The groom's dad is a pastor as well, so he's going to do the ceremony. But nobody wants to do marriage counseling with their dad, right? And so Kayla and I are doing marriage counseling. What are we doing? We are preparing them to know what's to come. And in the same way, Jesus wants to do the same with us. He is preparing us for what's to come. The reality is, if we don't like worship in church on Sunday, we're probably not going to like heaven, because there's going to be a lot of worship, and there's going to be a lot of Jesus, and we're going to be in his presence everywhere we go. Everything here is preparation as we go through this process of learning and growing and becoming like him. We are called to lead our families so that they will be ready to stand before Jesus, because one day, each and every one of them will. And we are called to lead in that time. A godly husband leads towards Christ. And firstly and lastly, so you don't think I'm confused and say, Pastor, you already did this. In case we missed it the first time, number 3, a godly husband leads with love. Ephesians chapter 5, 28 to 33. In the same way, husbands ought to love their wives as their own bodies. He who loves his wife loves himself. After all, no one ever hated their own body, but they feed and care for their body just as Christ does the church. For we are members of his body. For this reason, a man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and the two will become one flesh. This is a profound mystery, but I am talking about Christ and the church. However, each one of you also must love his wife as he loves himself. And the wife must respect her husband. Now, here's what's interesting. The wife is never commanded to love the husband, but the husband is commanded to love his wife. And that's significant because men and women, how many know we're made a little bit different, right? There are differences inside of us. And men, your wife needs your love. We receive love so often through respect. That's how we understood that we're loved and we're cared for, is that there's respect shown to us. But the wife most often receives it through tenderness and love and expression. She needs your love. Husbands, we have a million responsibilities when it comes to leading our families, and ultimately, we only have one. We are called to love and love well. Not just the shallow expression of I love you as I run out the door, but an action that reflects the truth behind those words, that it's not just empty words being said, but that we would love well in word and in deed, that we would love in our action and in our lifestyle, that we would love in our service and the treatment of our wife. Love is not the words, I love you. Love is tenderness. It is kindness. It's service. It's the words we say, but it's also the things that we choose to do and the things we choose not to do. It's dying to ourselves and saying, right now, I'm tired. I've had a long day at work. And I really just want to watch a movie. I want to play a video game. I want to just hide. I want to read. I want to, whatever it is. But it's saying, but I know that my wife's also had a long day. And so for the next hour, I'm going to take the kids. For the next hour, I'm going to wash the dishes. For the next hour, I'm going to just help be with my wife. I'm going to sit with her. I'm going to talk with her. I'm going to listen. Look, I'm getting real enough that I'm like, I'm going to amen myself because I'm like, Pastor, you got some work to do. There's times I've got to do better at this. There are areas where I've got to serve better. But this is what God calls us to as husbands, that we are called to lead through love and through serving and through being with our wives, through listening to them. Love is selfless and sacrificial. And the reality is, it's not because our wife deserves it. Maybe she had a bad day and we came home and she said something and we are faced with an option. We can either retaliate back and we can launch into the third argument of the day, or because Christ demands it, regardless of whether we fought that morning or not, I'm going to choose to respond in love. And I'm going to choose to love and to serve in every moment. See, love, biblically, the Bible uses here in this verse the word agape, is a selfless love. It's not something that's earned. This is the love that Jesus has for us, right? The reason we're saved is not because I was a good person or I did well enough that Jesus said, okay, this person meets the mark, now I love him. Jesus loved us while we were still sinners. That while we were a mess, he gave his life for. This is the same kind of love, because we're called to love like Jesus, to lead like Christ, to lead towards Christ. We are called to love our wife, not based on, does she meet my standards? Has she done what I feel like she needed to do today? We are called to love her because Christ loves her and he has entrusted her to us. I said a moment ago, the Bible uses the word agape. There's different forms of love, right? Nowadays, we say love, and we know that when I say I love pizza and I love Kayla, I hopefully don't mean the same things, right? The Greek actually differentiates between different love, the love of friendship and brother, right? And then there's the sexual love, and then there's this agape, this selfless love, right? So the Bible uses agape here in Ephesians 5. It also uses it in 1 Corinthians 13. Now, 1 Corinthians 13 is speaking of love leading spiritual gifts, but because It's the same version of love, agape. It's used in both places. Then we can take the definition of agape that's given in 1 Corinthians 13 and understand that this is the version of love and this is the expectation of love that God has placed on husbands as we lead our marriages and families. 1 Corinthians 13, 4 through 7. Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, and always perseveres. Husbands, I want to get real with you for just the next couple minutes. Would your wife describe you this way? I'm going to read through this again, but I'm going to put in my name, and I encourage you, if you're here today, put in your name. I have a question mark after each one of these, not as a statement, but as a question that Kayla and I are going to have to talk about this afternoon. And say, Kayla, is this how you would describe me? Seth is patient. Seth is kind. Seth got real dark. Seth does not envy. He does not boast. He is not proud. Seth does not dishonor me. He is not self-seeking. He is not easily angered. He keeps no record of wrongs. Seth does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. He always protects, always hopes, always trusts, always perseveres. Husbands, are we leading with love? I encourage you, have a conversation with your wife today. And open up to 1 Corinthians 13. And I say today, I don't say this week because I know what happens. We're going to get caught up in the busyness. And so maybe the car ride home doesn't work if you've got the kids, you've got things going. But sit down today and have a conversation and ask your wife and put down your guard and put down your defenses, because sometimes it feels personal because nobody has more access to us than our wife. So when they say something that doesn't feel good, then all of a sudden it becomes personal. But we've got to let our defenses down. Proverbs said, it's better the wound from a friend than a feast with an enemy. The wound of a wife may hurt, but it's just like dumping peroxide in a cut. It burns for a minute, but it's going to get everything out that needs to come out. And so have a conversation with your wife today. Let down your guards. Don't become defensive and say, honey, whatever you want to call your wife, babe, sweetheart, sweet cheeks, right? Whatever it is. You got your own nicknames. Have a conversation. Cupcake. My dad calls my mom Pupcake. But read through this passage and ask if it describes you. Hey, as I read through this and I put my name in here, do you feel like this describes me? And then be honest. And what areas don't? What areas am I not serving and leading you well? And then be intentional this week to love and serve her better. Take notes. If you have a temper, let's not pretend we don't. Let's learn to be patient. Maybe I'm short and I snap and I don't talk to her the way I should. Maybe you need to figure some things out. Maybe there's a certain time it happens. Maybe it's, there are things that are happening right when you walk in the door. And you're short every day when you come, and you may just need to say, hey, I need, every day when I come home, I need 5 minutes to disappear, and then I'm yours. But you need to decompress so that you can love your wife better. Whatever it is, find those areas to look through. Are you honoring your wife? Are you disciplined? Are you seeking after your own desires instead of putting your family first? Are you holding on to records of wrong? Maybe there's some things that husbands and wives you need to talk about And you might have a new fight, but it's always rooted back to, well, you did this. And it's something new, but it's rooted in something that we've never let go of. Love keeps no record of wrong. And I'll be honest today, there may be times I don't know your past, I don't know your story. Counseling's an option, and it is nothing. Your marriage is worth fighting for. And sometimes that means going to have a mediator who is going to help you figure out and address what's going on. Would your wife describe you saying that you protect her? Can she say that she has full trust in you, or is she afraid of what she's going to find if she looks at your phone? I'll be honest there. I've put things in place with Kayla where I've got codes and my iPad shuts off almost every single app at midnight, and it all goes off because I'm an evening person, but she's in bed before me most times. And I want to make sure that even when she's not watching, I'm protected. Can our wife trust us? Do we always find hope for our marriage? Are we looking for an excuse to run away? Will we persevere? Husbands, you are called to lead your wife and lead your families. Lead with love and lead them towards Jesus. So this is what we're going to do this year. We want to get very practical with this. So there's a couple things that we're going to do as a church to develop and prioritize marriages. And so the first is this. At the end of this series, February 22nd, we're going to be wrapping up this series. February 22nd, we're going to be talking about families and the home. But at the end of our service, as a part of our service, we're going to be doing vow renewals. And so we want to invite you, whether you've been married for 10 days, for 10 years, or for 70 years, we want to invite you that if you're here as a part of the church and you want to renew your vows, we're going to do that in front of everybody. Depending on the couples and how many want to be a part and things, we're either going to invite them up on the stage that are to spread out or maybe across the front, depending on how many are here. But we're going to do vow renewals. And we're going to take a stance that as for me and my house, we're going to serve the Lord. And at the end of that service, we're going to have vow renewals. And you can dress up as much as you want. You can go out, and if you want to get a white dress, ladies. Men, if you want to get a tuxedo, get a tuxedo. You can come in your blue jeans and cowboy boots. It doesn't matter. It's your wedding. Right? And so we're going to renew our vows. And it can be as big or as little as you want. Invite your family. Say, hey, we're doing a vow renewal in our service. Will you come and celebrate with us? We made a commitment to each other before, but as our church is making a commitment to developing marriages this year, we're going to make a commitment again. And this time, we may not have always done it right in the past, but this time, we're going to put God first. Or maybe you've been putting God first. Maybe you've been seeking God, but we're going to make a commitment. As for me and my house, as for us and our marriage, we will serve the Lord. And so we invite you to be a part of that. It'll be February 22nd. It's going to be a part of our service. So it's not going to be like we're going to have service, an altar call, and then afterward, it'll be right integrated into our service. We're going to do the vow renewals. The second thing we're going to do is we're going to launch this in March, and we'll give you guys the dates coming up. But we're going to go March through July, and once a month, we're going to have a marriage small group. It's going to have a one-time cost of $35 for us to be able to get the resources and things that we need to you. And then we're going to meet for about 2 hours, one time a month, once in March, once in April, once in May, once in June, once in July, 5 times for about 2 hours once a month. And we're going to take an in-depth look into marriages. There will be sections we address, and we're going to overview together, but we're going to have breakouts that is a normal part of this small group that we're going to talk and say, this is what we're going to do next, this is what's happening, and then we're going to send the couples to be able to break out and be able to get separate and begin to say, okay, we talked about this. What does this look like in our context? What does this look like in our marriage, in our own? And how do we begin to make it more personal? And so we're going to begin to have these sections where we come together, and then we're going to break out. We're going to leave you with tools and resources. And I think you may even find clarity for your marriage and aspects of it as you realize and discover who you are, the expectations that you carried into your marriage, and maybe why certain things have not meshed together because you're on different pages and you've never communicated about it before. We will build and rebuild a solid foundation so that as we do vow renewals today, we will also be there when you're ready to celebrate and do your 50th wedding anniversary that we can celebrate with you. So I want to encourage you, if you're a spouse, invest into this. This will be one of the most worthwhile things that you do once a month for the next 5 months. Could change the future of your marriage. It could change what the next 50 years looks like for you as you invest into yourself and into your family. I'm going to pray for you guys today. Lord, I thank you for every couple here. And I thank you for every man here today, God. Lord, whether they're single, God, whether they're dreaming of marriage one day and it's still a hope in their heart, God, or whether they're walking into that season now, Lord, I pray that you would build us up to be men of God. Lord, I pray for the husbands and the future husbands that are here in your house today. Would you help us to lead with love? Would you help us to lead like you, God, that as we become the man you're calling us to be, we can love better and we can serve better. So help us, God, to be grounded in you. Help us to put you first, knowing that everything that you're calling us to do will be found as we come after you. Lord, I pray for healing in marriages today. I pray for grace and hope, Lord, that as there's transition and maybe leading styles and functions of the home and plans of the home, as conversations come up, God, Lord, as the past hurts come up in conversations so that we can dump the peroxide on them and we can dump the word on them and we can see them heal. Lord, would you begin to work in the hearts of marriages today? Let there be an abundance of grace, but let there be healing and hope for a brighter tomorrow, because we're doing the hard work today. Lord, I thank you for the legacies and the testimonies that are going to come forth from your church in the months and years to come, because marriages are being changed today. And I pray, Lord, would you let us lead like Jesus? In your name, amen.